What is going on, folks? My name is Darren Kim. My partner in crime is Sal Menino. Today, we will be talking about business and is it really important to have skills in the business area and whatnot. So don't cut me off already, Sal.
I'm just pulling up my notes, Darren.
First, I think a lot of things, most things in this world revolves around the business side of things. And that can be true for a lot of things, right? Am I right or wrong, Sal?
No, I think business skills are definitely like a skill everybody should have at some point. I think it can change the perspective of the way you do things with business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But what do you want to start off with? Don't just.
Oh, those are your notes?
I was doing them on the treadmill this morning.
Oh my God.
So it's just like.
What does that say?
Business skills, negotiation characteristics, persistence, grit, and perseverance is the last one.
Oh my God. So
and the last one, I think it's perseverance. I really don't know.
So what's the first one?
The first one I want to talk about was business skills, which we kind of just talked about a little bit, just get into it. But like when you think about business skills, like what do you think of?
Like,
I guess
I don't know.
Really
there's a
broad
lot.
topic.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
It's a broad topic.
Which is like the reason why I think it is important, because there's a lot of ways to business, but a lot of it, I think, I don't know. It's like this topic obviously is a little weird-ish to talk about, but broad.
I guess from your perspective, it's probably weird because you've never done anything as far as business goes. You've been more the employee idea behind it, right? Versus starting your own.
Yeah, I've done a lot of classes on types of
businesses.
Not really businesses, but like marketing and all the stuff that goes behind the scenes in a business.
Do you remember any of it?
Decent amount, actually, just because I studied really hard.
Gotcha.
Even if the teacher wasn't good, I studied pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Not this past year because of COVID, but like marketing, supply and demand, so like the economics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As a business, you need to know that foundation of your micro and macro economics.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know your competitors, what market you're trying to get into. Is it too diluted? Is there an opening where you can penetrate the market and start at a low price just to, get customers.
Yeah.
Or you come, I forget what it's called, but like, I know it. It's where you come in, no one's around as in competitors, and you set the price high as hell. And then you're the only one. So when I said penetration, that's with low price.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else. I forget.
Are you saying like you have the best product in the market and essentially you just set whatever you want for it?
So, all right, let's say social media is a market right now, right?
Okay.
It could be. Mm-hmm. It's social networking.
Essentially, yeah.
But it's not. Well, I mean, it is, but there's so many companies already in that area. So let's say it's 1930 and social networking is about to possibly take off, right?
Okay.
And it didn't. I'm saying
no. I mean, it probably would have used, like maybe in the 70s.
So let's say what's going on now.
30s.
What's going on now is just delayed.
All right, fine. That's fine. Right. The days are relevant.
So if you're the first person in the market and you realize like, oh, there's a market that we can get into that no one has got into yet, you can set the price kind of high, because if you're the only company, you're a
monopoly.
Pretty much, until other people get in. So people come in with the price penetration to get people to leave us because they're selling their product at a lower price. Even though our quality may be a little bit better.
I think something that you can probably attest to this would be, in this situation, would be Tesla. Because Tesla, when it first came out,
Tesla.
I do. Their cars were I don't think you can get one under $80,000. Now you can. But you can get one under like $70,000 or $80,000 because, again, I think Elon Musk, he even did a interview with somebody. He's like, when a product first comes out, it's always going to be expensive. One, it's a brand new product. There's a lot of marketing behind it, a lot of analytics. The question is there really a market for it? And if there is, right, then that means more people will buy it. When more people buy it, that means you can lower the price because you're going to, in the long run, make more money, if that makes sense.
And you're going to get more loyal customers.
Exactly. So you're going to get those repeat customers. So, in 10 or 15 years, because people just love to buy cars every 3 years, he's now getting customers for that same quality of a product for a cheaper price. They're just going to come back. They're always coming back because of that. When I think about business skills, it is very broad. But there's a quote that says you're paid for in which the skills that you have. All right. And basically what that means is every skill in business is paid at a different rate, right? Like if you're a doctor, you're only going to get paid there's a certain cap for that, right? A teacher, there's a certain cap for that. A cop or a firefighter, EMT, you have a certain cap you're going to pay for, right? Because those are the skills that you have. Somebody who runs their own business, you have a bigger skill because what you're really doing, like a real CEO entrepreneur is really a person that brings a team together. Because one thing I've learned, like so far in business, like, and even just listening and reading books and listening to podcasts, is you can't build a successful business without a team of people. The lawyers, the accountants, the CFOs, the people that, in your manager departments, stuff like that, right? Those people are going to help build that baby of yours, right? Like that business, that's your child, right? That's your bread and butter. That's what right? But, you also have weaknesses, right? Every person in the world has a weakness in something. And something that what I've noticed and learned that these successful CEOs, they hire their weaknesses, right? Like somebody like Gary Vee, he hires people to do the videos for him. He can't make a fucking video or a thumbnail for YouTube. He hires people to do that for him. But, and he pays them well, right? Because they put out good quality. Like they're good at that skill. You're paid for the skills that you have, right? That's why somebody who works at a minimum wage job, you're getting paid for the skills that you have.
You only use your prefrontal cortex or something. That's what I heard that a politician said, even though we don't have to get into politics, but but he was describing
minimum wage.
Yes, and how someone in the crowd asked him a question and was like kind of pissed off that people weren't getting paid a lot. They're getting paid like $2 overseas to make a pencil. And he was explaining how simple that task is.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Ben Shapiro?
That was a college student.
He said that, but I remember Ben Shapiro ripped him apart.
Railed him for that one, which he gave a great analogy on that. But like you're only paid for the skills on what you hit. Like if you're the owner of that pencil company, right? If the company goes under, it's all your debt, right? It's all the employees are you, right? You have to pay all those employees. You have to pay for all those products, merchandise, right? You have to pay for all the programs that you might have needing to run the company, the utilities, the water, all that other stuff, security, whatever it might be, right? So you are putting out all this money, right? Which means you also get the bigger reward in the long run because you're putting out all this money, you're investing all this time, you're investing countless hours. When you work a 9 to 5, you go home, that's it, right? I mean, I guess there are some exceptions to this, like salary and stuff like that, whatever. Essentially, you're really doing more work behind the scenes, like teachers and stuff like that. But like a typical 9 to 5, like you work at Wawa, right? You work, say, 10 to 6. When you go to 10 to 6, you work from 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. After that, you're done. You're off the shift, right? A CEO, like the grind never stops. It's said in the first 5 years of any business, almost any business, you don't make a profit for the first 5 years because you're constantly investing back into it. It's a constant grind. In the first 5 years, they suck. And then once you build and uplift the one business, you use those skills that you acquired to either invest in another one or help somebody else that's starting a business and stuff like that. So you're paid in the skills in which you have obtained, not, just because somebody doesn't like you, for whatever reason. Like, I think minimum wage should not go up. It really shouldn't. No. You shouldn't be paid $15 an hour when there are cops and firefighters that are getting paid starting out at $15 an hour to go save somebody in a burning building or get shot at. I don't think for somebody flipping fucking burgers, they should get paid $15 an hour. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion on it. But I do believe that everybody can achieve more. right? And everybody's like, oh, well, I worked 40 hours this week and, you work 20 and get paid 3 times. Well, yeah, that's because you have the skills of a $15 an hour person, not the skills of a $50 an hour person. If you have the skills of a $50 an hour person, then you work less, essentially. But I think if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Now, is there going to be hard days? Yeah. I mean, there's days I don't want to fucking get up and list shit on eBay, but I do anyway. There are days I don't want to fucking ship, but I do anyway. Right? Yeah. There are days I don't want to make videos, but I have to because that's what I want to do.
So
right? Because you right now you don't make a lot of money on it. Right now it's just kind of like you're putting everything back in. You're paying for all your expenses. There's really no profit right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's kind of where I'm at. Like I make a little bit of profit, but like I put a lot more back in than you actually make. Like it's very little that you actually save.
Agreed. So going back to what you hit something really quick, you said most businesses, if not all, are probably in a net loss than a net profit in the first 5 years.
Correct.
So let me ask you something, ready? And see if you can get it. So what goes on during those 5 years? I'm looking for one word.
Constant fucking grind.
That's not one word.
Investment.
You got one more.
Grit, persistence.
So what I'm thinking the first 5 years, if you're not in a net profit and you're working hard, is failure. Right?
Yeah. Well, it said that I think 95% of those small businesses do fail. Or no, I'm sorry. It might be. I think it's less than that. I think it's like 70%. But it's a very high number of businesses that fail within their first 5 years as well.
So no. Well, my point to that was like there's going to be failures, especially in the business side of things, and I think. That's the way of life. How you have to fail in order to grow, and you have to be willing to be able to fail. Right? Mm-hmm. Am I hitting like? Does this make sense or not?
Yeah, like I mean, Jeff Bezos said it. He said at Amazon, he said billions and billions of dollars of failures, and he's failed more times than he's succeeded. Mm-hmm. Right? Again, going back to Elon Musk, he almost lost his company 2 or 3 times. He had 2 rockets that literally blew up, and there was hundreds of millions of dollars gone just like that, So are those failures? Yeah. Do they cost a shit ton of money? Yeah, they do. But you learn from them. You learn, hey, this didn't work. And I think the best teaching tool is trial and error. I really do. Because unless you try it, you don't know if it's going to work. And unless you take action, you'll never know. One thing that I'm starting to learn, like you can say whatever you fucking want. Unless you see somebody do it and start taking action, then how can you trust them?
Yeah.
I can't trust somebody. You could say you want to go make $1 million, but if you're not going to go take the action and do it, right? It's like the same people that live in poverty their entire life will say, oh, I want to get out. I want to get out. I want to get out. But then they keep the same shitty habits that they've had for the last 5 years. They never get out. Did you want to touch something on that?
No, it's just like what you're saying with like a routine, like they stay in the same routine and expect something to be given to them. And, they talk a lot and they don't, do much with their actions and just wish they had this and wish they had that. And then start picking on people that have certain things, saying like, oh, like you're rich and like, you drive all these fancy cars and stuff like that. But behind the scenes, they're working hard. Not the people in the same routine, the
people that
actually have good stuff in their life and valuable stuff in their eyes. They actually work for it. So going off of that, a Lamborghini, they said they don't have commercials because the people that drive their cars
aren't watching
TV. And
they're not.
So when I saw that, I was like,
no, I do see them on social media because there are people that do go on social media. So there are, there. But even like with Jaguar, Tesla, what's another? Maserati, Ferrari. Bugatti. None of those. Bugatti or whatever. I've never seen any of those commercials while I'm sitting down watching TV, the news, a documentary, none of that stuff. Because those types of people are not watching them. They're not watching TV. They're not sitting there 4 hours a day, sitting on the couch eating fucking Twinkies and potato chips.
They might now if they had a great life. And
that's a different story.
Sitting in their money and in their good life. Money it doesn't determine if you have a good life and if you're happy or not, but it definitely helps.
I think the habits are what determines if you have a good life when you have money, because there are people that hit the lottery and they blow it all. It's the same thing with the athletes. Like a large portion of athletes after they're done their career, they go broke.
Right.
And the reason they go broke is because of the poor, shitty habits that they had their entire lives coming from poverty. Then they get all this money because they had a really good skill to play professional sports, right? Going back to business, you're paid in what your skills you have. Everybody hates on people for, all these skills, they get paid $20 million for this position and all this stuff. Well, you get paid for the skills and what you have. And again, very selective people make it to the NFL. Very selective people make it to the NBA.
It's crazy how people say that they shouldn't get paid as like that's a topic. Should they get paid what they get paid right now, or should they get paid less? If you think about it, how many people can compete
at that kind of level?
Like obviously not even 1%. It's so.
I mean, I was listening to a podcast recently, and I can't remember who it was. It might have even been one of those pump-up videos. And Russell Wilson spends $1 million a year on personal.
I thought that was LeBron James.
There are a couple of different ones that do that, but they spend like $1 million a year
on their body.
To stay in that peak shape. Yeah. And remember, think of that as an investment. Well, if I'm spending $1 million a year, I better be making $10 million. You know what I mean? Like if I'm spending $1 million to invest in myself to stay as healthy as it possibly can be, then I better be making $10 million. And that athlete's probably making $10 million a year, $8 million a year, right? But they're making all that money and they're putting all that into themselves. Right. So like that's a business in themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tickets are expensive. They're expensive because there's players. Yeah, they are expensive, but you're going to compete with those people, watching them compete, So
let's go back a little bit to our business, like quote unquote business skills type of thing.
Okay.
So when I look at business or think of business, like everything is almost like a business in itself, even if it doesn't have the company at the end.
Yeah.
Or, like a school it runs like a business, right?
Correct.
It has its employees and people come and pay as in taxes, or if it's private school, pay actual money.
You have a board of trustees essentially. Yeah. And that board, the school board that determines the decisions of what happens in the school, right?
Yeah.
I guess your superintendent could be considered the CEO, right? Mm-hmm. And then the CEO is clearly the school board is in charge of that CEO, something like that. So in that sense, I think that would be a good analogy there with that being said. I think an important skill to have is negotiation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because if you can't negotiate, you're never going to win, right? Like, and I think it's kind of an unconscious bias that like people don't realize that you're always negotiating with yourselves, right? You're negotiating to eat those peanuts now or later. You're negotiating to eat that donut today and feel lethargic and like be a fat fuck, or don't eat it and eat like a celery stick or something and just, suck it up. Talking about negotiating, like when you think about like that, like what do you think of?
I just think there's a lot of back and forth with, it could be customer and, the company. It could be business to business wise, where it's something in the supply chain management or a supply chain with like the manufacturer and the retailer.
Okay.
Could be anything with that. So there's a lot of, I feel like, going back and forth talks wise. I mean, it's kind of almost straightforward negotiation. A lot of people know what it's about, but not the ins and outs of it, though. People obviously do not know. So negotiation could be with anything, though. It doesn't have to be with business. Could be little kids are talking about something. They want that, that piece of candy, and I'll give it to you for my 2 pieces of gum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth with that. So.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. The next thing that I would think, like, when I think of like a good business skill to have would be like grit. Like, it's like I have it pulled up here, like what the actual definition is. Grit is a positive, non-cognitive trait based on an individual's perseverance of effort combined with the passion for like a particular long-term goal. And it's almost like a state of mind, like having that grit. It's just like your goal is to win a championship and how persistent are you going to be with that? Like, what things you're going to do in order to achieve that? How many hours you're going to spend in the weight room? How many hours you're going to study film? How many hours you're going to study the technique, right? Like those things. Like it's that passion it's a passion that you want to have, and you just continually keep grinding, right? You just keep going. I think with business, like you have to have the grit, because there's going to be days where you just don't want to fucking do it. Like whatever it might be, you don't want to make that phone call, but then that phone call might change your life forever, right? It's trying to deal with the rejection and the back and forth with the people. Like right now, I'm dealing with like returns of these people are saying, oh, well, you didn't list it like this, but then I have in my listing like, hey, I'm not responsible for any damages or anything like that, and you must ask all the questions before buying the item, and clearly they didn't, and now I'm going back and forth, and he's trying to say, oh, well, I'm going to leverage the company over you because I'm just going to be a dick. Like that's what he's saying, rather than talking it out here. So like with that, like it's just it's annoying sometimes, but you learn to deal with it. You have anything you want to add to that?
Well, since we're talking about grit, I can personally say that grit is used for successful people and people that are dedicated. I mean, honestly, everything you said is what I would say. But in business, on the business side of it, it's the same thing as it goes for like a sports team. For us, for high school football, we had to have that grit day in and day out.
Yeah.
Day couldn't be missed. And the day that we didn't have the grit, it was noticed. The coaches called us out. A game, if we didn't have the grit, like Cinnaminson, I remember. I mean, there's a lot of excuses you can say. Like even for myself, I had excuses that I could bring up. Physically wise, like my shoulder was kind of bodied. But other than that, like grit, you can tell who has it and who doesn't. So I mean, that's why I like how you brought that up and we're talking about it now for business, because you can definitely see if someone has it or doesn't. And if the majority of your company, let's say for business wise, has it, you're probably going to be a successful business. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. Saying that. So I don't know. So what else would you like to talk about?
No, I mean, I think we covered quite a bit of things in here, and you could really go on and on and on about like what it takes to have a successful business and stuff like that, and ways. There's so many ways you can go about it, talking about grit and business skills in general. But I think that's. I mean, do you have any closing remarks you want to say before we end the podcast here?
I just want to try to say something that not the customers, Jesus, that the viewers or any listeners that could possibly listen to any of this, they're like, why would I want to listen to this or anything like that? I just feel that as a viewer and as a person in our society, negotiations, business is going on 24/7 around us, even if we know it or not. So I think knowing, even though you probably maybe not have learned a lot, through this podcast, it might have given you some interest in it. Maybe you can, go research on your own, possibly. But again, I mean, we just try to at least inform you guys and give you some information. Our personal experiences, we're still very, very young. I'm sure in a year from now, we'd say other things and more personal experiences and whatnot, and our own opinions maybe could change with grit, even though it probably wouldn't, because grit's very, very straightforward. But on to you, Sal.
I think that it doesn't matter how old somebody is. I think you can always learn something from somebody. I don't think it matters how young somebody is or how old somebody is. I think if somebody's 8, 9, or 10, you can learn something from them, and they can learn something from you. I think it works both ways, because I know some people at 13, 14, 15 that are smarter than some 25, 30-year-olds, right? Because they just start to figure it out. I don't think you ever really have it figured out, but I think you have it more. You have something figured out, if that makes sense. You don't have everything figured out, but you have something figured out. And I think some people have more things figured out than others.
You're going on the right track. Morale would say. What is it? Either you're
you're either on the train or you're on the tracks, right?
Yeah.
So I think some people are on the train sooner than others. I think some people, it might be until they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and some people's it's in their teens and 20s. Like, that's just what it is. But that's okay, too. Like, you got to understand, like, hey, that's okay. You know, you learn from that. Like, at some point, you just got to get fucking tired of the way you are and learn to change from that and stop blaming fucking people for the actions that you had. Like, you can't blame anybody for that you woke up late. Like, you woke up late. That's your fault. You know? You get fired, that's your fault, right? Like, that's not really anybody else's fault. I mean, you can try and, you know, sometimes are there reasons that shouldn't happen? Yeah, sure there are. But, you know, everything is kind of your fault. It's like the kind of idea of self accountability in a business like the CEO. You just got to be self accountable for everything, you know, with the good and the bad, because you're going to take a lot of bad, you're going to take a lot of failures, but, you know, eventually you hit a peak. And, you know, you take off. Like, I think a lot of people fail just at that peak mark, right? You're almost like you're here and you're almost here, right? And I think you failed somewhere in between here when you just had to do it one more time or two more times. And then you're there.
Know that it literally could have took just the tiniest bit.
The next call.
Something.
It could have been the next call.
Could have just excelled you into, instead of you quitting, you could have just been right at the, you know, right there. Right to tip.
So I think my message from this would be just keep going every time, because that last call might be the call that you've been waiting for. I think that's how I would end this. Got anything else?
No.
Alrighty.
I know this one might have not have been the most exciting podcast. It's definitely not an area that neither of us are that knowledgeable in yet. He's definitely a little bit more there. I think I might have a little bit more of the term knowledge of me going to college and learning actually about it. He does it firsthand and stuff like that with selling. But I would say thank you for listening. Hopefully there's some more podcasts coming up that are more enjoyable for you. But other than that, thank you for listening.
All right, guys. See you next time.
Doses.
Out of here.